Hello again, YouTube. I am going to actually read my very first article, so it's a bit of a blast from the past. It was published a few years ago in a woman's magazine, and it is called Why Empowered Women Choose Not to Circumcise. It goes like this. Circumcision? What on earth does circumcision have to do with being an empowered woman? The answer isn't obvious. The two issues seem worlds apart, one having to do with an infant's foreskin and the other you. Some of us seeking personal strength and empowerment in our lives may never have children. Some already have. But the fact is that knowing the truth is empowering for any woman or any man. How many times have I heard something similar to, "If I had known, I never would have let them do it"? This statement is oftentimes made, unfortunately, by the mothers of boys who have had complications which sometimes need additional surgery to correct. Having the truth about circumcision can only lead to an empowered decision should the occasion arise, or having an empowered position in your community. However, knowing why an empowered woman would choose not to circumcise goes beyond simple education and into our strengths and weaknesses. And to see it, we must examine also why nowadays we circumcise in the first place, even in the face of truth. So let's start with the truth. Circumcision is unnecessary. You may be thinking, but they've been doing it for so long, and I've always heard that it's cleaner. The medical documents regarding circumcision in the United States date back to the late 1800s, and quote well-respected doctors saying that circumcision would, among many things, end masturbation and even cure insanity. The hygiene issue wasn't brought up until after those ideas were realized as false, or as a sort of afterthought. No one had, at the time, ever studied the foreskin, and claiming that it's cleaner not to have it is like claiming that it's cleaner to remove your fingernails so that dirt cannot collect under them. As far as I know, fingers come into more contact with contaminants than the penis. Since then, there have been many other excuses that take turns defending circumcision, and even today, medical professionals are still debating the supposed benefits that include an implication of preventing STDs to penile cancer. The American Academy of Pediatrics has stated since the 1970s that there is, quote, no valid medical indication for circumcision, end quote. And still others hold to the old assumed facts. In the face of professionals making opposite claims, one can only either study everything there is to be studied, or resort to common sense. If 85% of the world has natural genitals, and they don't end up needing modification, perhaps what's natural is safe. After all, women have many more folds of skin down there, and we seem to do okay. Even in the face of an infection or other problems, the solution is never amputation for women. There isn't, after all, a single body part that is free from an occasional problem. We don't cut off our toes to prevent getting an ingrown toenail. Circumcision is also extremely painful and inflicts damage. That's what they won't tell you. The foreskin in infancy is attached to the head of the penis with a membrane called synechia that is similar to the membrane attaching your fingernail to your fingers. The foreskin must therefore be torn from the head of the penis before it can be amputated. This would be like shoving a blunt metal probe under your fingernail. The complications of circumcision arise from the risk of taking too much skin or accidentally cutting off other structures like shaft tissue or the glands, penis head. There's a risk of infection and hemorrhage, as well as issues arising after circumcision like skin bridges and core D, or bent penis. There have been many unfortunate instances where the infant suffers the loss of the entire penis or even death. Though it isn't well known, the foreskin is an essential part of the penis. The foreskin of an infant protects the glands from abrasion and contains a tight ring of tissue at the end that keeps fecal matter and other debris from coming in contact with the urethral opening. Later in life, after the glands and foreskin separate, the gliding motion of the foreskin aids in smooth sexual intercourse. The average foreskin is also innervated with 10 to 70,000 sexually responsive nerve endings. Finally, we must consider the moral implications of removing a part of someone's genitals by force. Whose body is it? Who should decide? Who has the right to remove part of your genitals without asking? No one? Well, how nice for you. In the United States, female minors are protected from any kind of genital cutting by federal law, regardless of race or religion. According to the 14th Amendment, everyone deserves equal protection under the law, regardless of race, religion, or sex. Most women in the United States have no experience with an intact penis. There is an underlying belief that it's gross or dirty. We generally don't know that it has a function and are told that circumcision is a good thing. Even as knowledge that circumcision isn't medically necessary spreads and becomes more commonplace, we are still circumcising. Why? As a woman, it is our instinct and our conscious desire to protect our children from any harm. Aside from our ignorance about the subject, meaning that we intend to protect them from harm by circumcising them, what could be so strong that is able to override this natural tendency? The reasons are the things that hold us down. The pressure to socially conform, avoid conflict by allowing denial, and the inability to assert ourselves. The need to be normal is a natural human instinct. That's why teasing and ostracism are so effective. No one wants to feel like they've stepped over the boundaries of taboo. For many women, being seen as different is an unacceptable risk, and she will conform to the perceived norm to avoid it. Society used to punish those who were different with very severe consequences, including death. Living in a more sophisticated and civilized society, we no longer face anything as extreme as physical harm for stepping out of the norm. But the weight of social expectation is still too much for some women to handle. That's not the American way. He'll be the only boy on the block. My parents won't agree, or I don't want to be different, are things that she may worry about. It takes a confident and empowered woman to let go of any concerns about what others will think, or the desire to be like everyone else in favor of doing what's right. In fact, in these changing times, the rate of circumcision is as low as 30% on the West Coast, and possibly only 50% nationwide, and dropping. Worrying about being different is becoming less of an issue for women and young boys. Not to mention that most of the world does not routinely circumcise male infants. Boys are more likely to face teasing from peers about things that are obvious at first sight, like clothes or weight, and we accept this as a normal part of growing up. A good way to avoid thinking about an uncomfortable topic or having to make a tough decision is to simply ignore it, or believe something that allows you to dismiss it. This is generally something common with people who are stuck in a negative situation that cannot be changed, so that they don't have to feel bad. Women who have already had their son circumcised would have to admit that they were wrong if they accepted that circumcision is damaging or unnecessary. This plays a large role in circumcision's perpetuation. We don't want to admit that we could have hurt our children, so we may even take it as far as insisting that it's necessary and that it continue to prove that we were right in our subconscious defense. For those with the decision still in front of them, it may be easier simply to believe what we've always heard and skip the argument altogether. Many simply don't want to know the truth because it would complicate their situation. Accepting myth at face value and denying yourself knowledge is like locking your own chains. It is allowing someone else to make your decisions for you. Being empowered means having the strength and the courage to stand against oppression, even if it comes from inside your own self. Refusing to deny is a difficult quality to obtain because the one you're fighting is you. When a baby boy is born, or sometime before, a woman is faced with the question, will the baby be circumcised? She must then deal with many pressures. If the baby's father was circumcised, he may want the same for the child. Because it is an issue concerning the penis, A woman may feel that the decision isn't hers to make, and even though she may not want to allow it, she will defer to the father. Perhaps the doctor has said that it's necessary. In the United States, we trust that our doctors know all and are infallible. It may seem rude or insulting to go against what her doctor has suggested. Who supposes to know more than a doctor? Even a woman's faith may be questioned if circumcision is perceived as a religious necessity. She doesn't want to appear as though she's going against her religion. All of these pressures may make a woman feel as though it's not her place to interfere with the issue of circumcision, and she finds it difficult to assert herself, feeling less than empowered. However, a mother's first job is to protect, because infants cannot speak for themselves, so circumcision most certainly is her business. Taking a stand against your mate, doctor, or religious peers is without a doubt a challenge. Again, it takes a woman with strength and courage to overcome such situations. An empowered woman is educated, refuses to believe myth, is strong, moral, and she stands up for herself and the defenseless. It takes all of these things to say no to circumcision. For those empowered women who aren't faced with making this decision, they will, by the same qualities, refuse to continue to be a catalyst for the perpetuation of a harmful practice against the defenseless. Thanks for watching.